Hello, hello,
Hello.
Hi.
hello. I'm going to. Okay, Caitlin and Casey, I see you are on here. Okay, hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. We're
Nice to
just
meet you.
missing. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. You guys have cool backgrounds. I just have a blank wall. We're just waiting for Jake. Let's see. So yeah, people are joining right now. We'll just give it a 3 minutes so everybody can get in here.
Caitlin, where are you located?
I'm in Seattle.
Oh, so am I.
Oh, nice. I was wondering if you were. So, no, it's where ATTA is. Nice. Yeah,
For the,
my background's from the Cascades.
I was just about to ask that.
From,
Awesome.
was it last year?
Oh, that's cool. Did you take it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. What peak is that? Or are those?
I
No?
don't know the actual peak. The name of the hike is called Heather Maple Loop.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, so for everybody joining, we're just going to give it a couple of minutes while our last guest joins us, and then we are gonna begin. I wish there was some like waiting elevator music you could put on Zoom, but
Where are you located?
I am in Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty hot up until a week ago. It was still getting in the 90s, and all of a sudden it's really cold. But that's just how the weather works in the desert.
Yeah, extremes coming in.
Yeah. Let's see. I hope Jake. I don't know where Jake is located, but I
He's
hope he
down in
got this.
Mexico right now. He's
Oh,
usually
really?
in Seattle, but
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
See people I know. Lisa, Verdika. Ah, hi. Fun. Unless it's not the Verdika I know, but I bet it is.
Okay, for everybody that's just joining, we're just going to give a couple minutes, and we're still missing our last guest, who I am just going to remind. Oh, there he is. Cool. Let's see. Admit all. Admit all. Jake, if you can, or I think I can ask you to unmute and turn on your video. Hello, Jake. Your microphone is turned off just in case. There we
I'm here.
go. Great. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah. How you doing?
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so we're all here. Let me just make sure. I'm still admitting people, like people are still joining. So we're just going to give it another 2 minutes and then we'll start.
Hi, Casey.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm good.
So you're all in Seattle?
Normally he is.
Oh, okay.
Not at the moment, though. I'm in Baja, Mexico.
Oh, you're in Baja. Yeah, that's true. You just said that.
Yeah, it's beautiful here.
Yeah, it looks nice. Let me see. Jake, I'm just getting like a little bit of wind from your mic. So if, yeah, maybe when you're not talking, maybe you can just mute it and then, yeah, that'd be perfect. Okay. Alrighty. Well, people are coming in batches, so I'll start the introductions. I just have to be admitting them into the event, but I will begin it. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So yeah, so we'll just start with who we have. So Casey, Caitlin, and Jake, you can all hear me okay, right?
Yeah, sound great.
Okay, perfect. All right then. Well, for those of you that are here, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Fernando Villa. I'm from Aire Libre Running. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you very much for joining us on this talk called The Future of Travel. And I just kind of want to explain a little bit the motivation for this talk. I mean, as you all know, there's a lot of changes happening in the world today. And one of the primary industries that's been affected is the travel industry, because it's also the largest, one of the largest, if not the largest industry that employs, you know, a big percentage of the world. And this is, we don't really, we've had our ideas in the past of what travel is and what it's meant to us and then how we've used travel, perhaps as an escape, perhaps as a way to recharge, regenerate, kind of see different perspectives, which we'll get into. But that's also changing in this new era. And, after COVID and during COVID, everything's made us really question what travel gives us, how it helps us. And I think it's very worth it to kind of wonder how it's changed, how it's going to be changing, and also what responsibility we have as travelers as an industry in the future of travel. And this is going to really affect the types of experiences that are going to be offered in the future, what we as consumers are going to look for, what we're interested in. And that has a lot to do with how we see travel, what meaning and purpose and value travel has for us as consumers and as an industry. And I think with this panel that we have, we have 3 experts from different organizations, which I'll explain right now, but I think they'll be able to give us a really clear idea and even help us question ourselves what the future of this industry will be and really the place that travel has in all our lives and how it's going to help us and how we can maybe use it in the future to help ourselves, to change our lives, to also protect a big part of the world, because travel does have an influence on different cultures and communities and the conservation and preservation of these and also of natural areas and environments. So I think it's good for us to start to get an understanding of what our effect is on these places, on these people, on these cultures, and what we can start to think of and do as consumers and travelers in the future. And that really falls on us because we have the power of decision on where we go and what we do and basically how we travel. So, that's kind of the basis for the talk. And now I'm going to present our guests that we have today. We have guests from 3 organizations. We had a 4th one. Some of you might be here because you heard of Ron Griswold being here. He unfortunately could not make it. He had a last minute, just kind of last minute plans that couldn't fit, and he wasn't going to be able to have good sound. And so he said he would rather not do it. But I think we have a very, very diverse, from different perspective kind of group here. So our first guest that I want to talk about is Caitlin Brasich. She's a senior manager of communications and education at Sustainable Travel International. And I'm just gonna, for the sake of brevity, I'm just gonna read her bio. Caitlin possesses a particular passion for using communication and education to inspire meaningful change. Caitlin is currently the senior manager of communications and training for Sustainable Travel International, a nonprofit organization dedicated to transforming tourism's impacts and protecting vulnerable destinations. In this role, Caitlin raises awareness around sustainability issues affecting people, places, and nature, and promotes best practices in tourism. Caitlin has facilitated stakeholder training workshops in St. Kitts and Antigua and Barbuda, and supported various other projects in destinations such as Chile, Mesoamerican Reef, Fiji, Samoa, and Palau. So welcome, Caitlin. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Casey Hanisco. She's the president of the Adventure Travel Trade Association. As president of the Adventure Travel Trade Association, or ATTA, Casey manages the strategic direction and dynamic team delivering an ecosystem of events and business solutions for destinations and adventure travel brands around the world. She's a former head of ATTA's marketing and communications efforts. Casey was responsible for communicating the place global adventure travel has in the context of the greater tourism industry. She leads the success of a long-term partnerships that are built to advance destinations efforts to support economic and community-based initiatives. Thank you, Casey, for being here with us today.
Thank you.
And our last guest is Jake Halpert. He's a co-founder of Transformational Travel Council. Jake is the co-founder, and he's dedicated to unleashing travel's transformative, regenerative, and interpersonal potential as never before, promoting both personal fulfillment and global thrivability by taking the best from 5 fields of thought: travel, diversity and equity, psychology, spirituality, and neuroscience, and making it available with rigor and accessibility to the travel industry and traveler through the Transformational Travel Council. Jake and the TTC are focused on cause-driven initiatives that are centered on behavior change, traveling and living more mindfully, and fostering a positive holistic change at a traveler, host, private sector, and destination level. So thank you, Jake, for being here too.
Thank you.
And so I'm sure I didn't do justice to all your organizations, and I'm sure you guys can talk about these as we're talking, we're discussing these questions. So, but yeah, I just wanted to give those introductions. And so just to open up, or just to set kind of the mood of the conversation, I just want to read a quote. And this is from The Art of Travel by Alain de Botton. And there are actually 2 quotes that I want to read. So the first is, "Journeys are the midwives of thought. Few places are more conducive to internal conversations than a moving plane, a ship, or a train. There is an almost quaint correlation between what is in front of our eyes and the thoughts we are able to have in our heads. Large thoughts at times requiring large views, new thoughts, new places." And the second quote is, "If it is true that love is the pursuit in another of qualities we lack in ourselves, then in our love for someone from another culture, one ambition may be to weld ourselves more closely to values missing from our own culture." So to introduce this talk, I think what I want to talk with the 3 of you first, or ask you, is, these quotes talk about travel and kind of like the philosophical value of travel for us. All 3 of you deal with organizations that are about travel, and I want to ask you, what place or what role does travel have in our lives and in our lifestyles and in our society today. And if it's, you know, is it something that you see that's necessary for growth? And can we grow the same way or can somebody grow the same way if they've never traveled? So, you know, just around what is travel's role in our place today? Caitlin, do you want to share what you think about that?
Sure. So I think in talking about that, it's important to understand that there's so many different types of travel and forms of travel, right? There's, of course, international travel where you're going across the world. There's also travel to places that are just in your backyard. So to say, you know, somebody's never traveled before, that's probably not really the case. They've traveled somewhere, right? And I think that travel does play a really important role in our lives, and we're seeing, you know, more and more people as they're traveling, searching for meaning in their travels, searching for fulfillment, and wanting to develop those deeper connections with the places, the people that they're visiting. And so we're not just looking so much anymore to just, you know, go to a place and, you know, see it and not really develop a connection with that place. Now we're looking at travel as something that's a lot more deeper, and that plays a much more meaningful role in our lives. And that also allows us to experience those places that we're visiting, and to give back to those communities that we're visiting as well, and to do our part to lessen our footprint on the planet.
Awesome. Casey, do you want to share what you think travel's role is?
Yeah, I think, I think that the COVID pandemic has actually put a really interesting new perspective on things, because, you know, from an adventure travel standpoint, it's valuable for people to experience activities outside in nature, and that often also means an experience with another community or culture that might be different than what one might experience in a daily way. And I think what has become different and a change is the reality and the sort of the realization that you don't have to go far to have the same type of experience, and that it is could be really close to you in your own community, or, you know, in nature, an hour or two away. So, you know, you asked whether it's important for people to travel to have those sort of deeper perspectives on culture, and I think it is important. I don't think it's critical that it has to be halfway around the world. And I think that there's a lot of discussion right now around how you really, or I should say, there's starting to be discussion around how you really should be even experiencing the communities that are closest to you in order to really be able to experience communities farther away. So I think it could be a longer discussion around that topic.
Yeah, great, thank you. Jake, same question.
I would echo what Caitlin and Casey said. You know, when we travel, I think we're looking for two things. We're looking for connection, and we're looking for meaning. And as they mentioned, you can do that anywhere. I do believe that it's depth over distance, and it is a mindset, and it's opening up your eyes and your mind and your heart to new experiences that give you the opportunity to be introspective and see how you fit into the world and how you connect with others. You know, that is what drives, you know, our ability to learn and shift behaviors, shift attitudes, change our habits, you know, and really grow into our best selves. And that does have an impact on our communities and well beyond. So I do see it as critical, as long as it's looked at through the right lens, and it is taken. It's not taken for granted, and it's looked at as a privilege and as an opportunity. I think that for many years, travel has been, you know, a source of entertainment, and you know, it's in my mind couldn't be further from that. It's an art and a science, and something that is meant to be engaged with intention and it can bear amazing results for us as individuals. As you know, I was just looking through your manifesto. You guys are very in tune to this and seem to be way ahead of a lot of the trends that we're seeing now because of COVID.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think thank you, Jake. I think what I'm hearing is, that, well, as you said, travel can be something that's intentional, but, the three of you work basically in industries around travel. So how has, right now we're talking about travel changing, and that might be because, the pandemic and a lot of factors, but what was the place in travel? What was travel like for people before? Like you might think of a typical office worker, and they would just plan their vacation days to go to somewhere close or far and just go to the beach and just have fun and just relax and just recharge a bit. And that's a little bit different than going for kind of like a transformational experience that has a lot of meaning. It's just really been looked like as an escape from daily life, from your routine. And in a certain sense, it does have that ability, just leave and be in a different pace and a different rhythm. Can any of you shed a little light on that, on how you've seen, or how industry and people thought about travel before?
You can talk.
Go
I can
ahead, Casey.
Well, adventure travel has been around for a long time, and people started off in many ways, doing expeditions and conquering mountains and really sort of having this goal that was set out to experience. And I think that is shifting, and people still do travel because of their passions. But I think that there's a slowing down, there's a diversifying of what's interesting from a travel perspective. So it's not all one activity and one thing. There's many different ways you can broaden your perspective when you're traveling. I think more people are traveling in various groups with people with different abilities. And so that's changing it. It's not, it's not a white man climbing a mountain anymore. And that is, from the adventure travel perspective, it's where it started. And I think that is very different now, and which is great. And so hopefully that continues.
Yeah. Caitlin, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah. So I would talk about kind of two different things, I guess. The first being the whole idea that, because of this pandemic, before we were seeing, just pounding on destinations, right? And lots of tourists going there and really, causing quite a bit of damage. Well, through this pandemic, I think that we've seen a lot of awareness put onto those impacts that tourism can have, both the negative as well as the positive. We've seen, the money stop flowing into local communities, the devastating impacts that's had on the people, as well as the protected areas and wildlife that depend on that funding from tourism. And so we've definitely seen that, kind of transformation of that awareness and that being a motivating factor behind this, for sure, as something that's driving change within the industry.
Yeah, people are definitely becoming more aware. Jake, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you mentioned escape. I think it's almost backwards. I feel like the world, the society that we live in is an escape. Our Western civilization, the culture that we live in, we're escaping our truest selves. We're escaping the things that are most important to us. Travel gives us that opportunity to reconnect to those things, reconnect to self, reconnect to your family, reconnect with nature. So it's very much something that grounds you and brings you back into yourself. you know, and it gives you an opportunity to become whole and to reevaluate, you know, like who you are today. Where do you want to go tomorrow? And that's pretty special. And I think that that's a significant shift that's happening within the space is you know, at the very essence of why we travel.
Yeah. So do you
Can I
think,
add-
oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to add on to something that Caitlin said, 'cause she talked about over tourism, and that was a big issue before the pandemic, and so was climate action and focus on climate change. And obviously with COVID and everything becoming quiet and so much less travel, there's been less of a focus on that 8% of climate change is attributed to things related to travel, mostly air, but many other elements as well. And I think that what's important to talk about there is that's not going to go away when as travel comes back. So travelers are interested in traveling in a sustainable way. And so they're going to be looking for solutions. And I hope that they do look closely at businesses that are thinking about that. And, you know, not just from a carbon offsetting standpoint, carbon removal, or it's really looking at how is the trip itself structured. So there's all three of those elements need to be taken into consideration. And I think that that's going to become even more important as we go forward.
Yeah. So are these shifts, would you all say, are these shifts because of COVID? And if so, what about COVID specifically made us question the value of travel? It could be, just thinking generally, it could be the lockdown, you know, that we've all been kind of locked in our homes or just kind of restricted in a lot of ways. And that gives us this desire to go and explore something when we haven't been able to. Is it because of that lockdown mentality that this shift in travel is happening, or are there other factors that you've been able to perceive?
I'll jump in, although I'm sorry for the wind. I'm a little limited on places that I get a good internet Wi-Fi signal. But you know, this has accelerated our own introspection, individually and collectively. You know, and with that, we're going to reevaluate, you know, our priorities. And so while I think that there were already these changes unfolding, and there has been this awakening in tourism for quite some time, I think that this has given us an opportunity to move through that process a little bit more quickly. You know, with challenge and with obstacle, you know, and the overcoming of those, you know, you start to identify a new path. And I think that that's what we're seeing now, is collectively we're identifying a new path because we're overcoming something that's really challenging for all of us. It's given us a chance to take a deep breath and reevaluate, you know, what is our role in tourism? You know, and travelers, what does travel mean to me? And how can I get more out of that for, you know, in my next journey? And even beyond that, how can I give back more? So I think that this has been obviously tragic on many levels, but it's also an amazing opportunity for us to shift out of some really bad habits that weren't productive for us individually or society.
Yeah. What are those bad habits, would you say? Like, what were the challenges of travel? Like, as consumers, as people who have traveled, you know, I can bet most of the people listening right now have traveled somewhere. What can the three of you, what insights can you share with us about the things that we might miss when we're traveling that are contributing to, you know, these problems that you're working on changing, for communities, for culture, for nature, for climate? Just just try to make us aware of some of those things that we can start to be aware of in our travel.
Sure. So I'll start off by saying, you know, I mean, there's so many things that you could go into here, so I'm just going to choose a few. But one of the things is that community impact portion, and not realizing maybe how much of your tourist dollars are actually staying in and benefiting the local economy. And so thinking about, you know, beyond just, your actions, but how are local communities really embedded into the entire tourism experience? If you're booking a tour operator, are they talking about that they are working with local farmers and fishers to provide their food? Are they working with local tour guides? Are they supporting professional development? So looking for these ways that the businesses that you're supporting, how they're benefiting those local communities, and then of course doing what you can to also support local businesses, because this is, one of the greatest powers of tourism is to bring those benefits to these local communities. And so we're really doing, ourselves and the world a disservice if we're traveling to these places and not accomplishing that through our travels.
Yeah.
I would just add on to that also is, really thinking about when you travel to places, going outside of what might be the most popular place and getting away from, the bucket list mentality, and thinking about, if there's a beautiful place in a country, there's bound to be very similar, perhaps even more impactful places that are close by. And so really thinking through why you need to go to that iconic place specifically, and or respecting if there are regulations around when you can go or how many people can go, and really realizing that destinations have to be really thoughtful about that and putting the time into it, because that also connects back to the community. People live, these are their homes. And so this is something that we have to remember, that privilege. And I think that is what we all have been a little bit smacked in the face with, which is, it was so easy to travel. You just went on trips and you stayed places and you bought your plane ticket and you did your tour without a lot of thought as to how, what the privilege is of being able to do that. And now that is very close to home. And so I think there's going to be much more thought around, what does that mean? Where do I want to go? And who does it affect? And, because now we're actually thinking about, literally when we're walking into a place, what could I be bringing with me?
Yeah.
And that's not just maybe COVID, but everything else. What do you bring as a person, your mentality? What gift maybe could you be bringing from the experience you're going to have that might actually benefit that community? So I think there's a different philosophical twist that we could start to move down.
Yeah, and so you're basically saying we have, as travelers, we have an even more important responsibility now to actually research these places, because there's really nothing that tells us these are the places you should be traveling. There's blogs and stuff like that, but we basically decide where we want to travel. That's an interesting point. How do we decide where we want to travel? And a lot of it is, based on iconic places that we've seen in movies, or that, they're just iconic for being iconic. We just hear about them, but now we have a greater responsibility to research them. And, I think about it the way we're buying clothes nowadays, where you might choose to buy a jacket or something based on if it was made sustainably, or, where the down comes from, or something like that. And so now we have to think about this in terms of the places that we visit too. Like, like you were saying, are people being treated responsibly? I think Caitlin was saying this. Ethically, are people getting paid correctly? Are they using local guides instead of some corporation? It just seems like the shift is being put on us as travelers, to kind of figure this stuff out and choose what's kind of off the beaten path. Would you say that that's close?
I think there's a need for transparency. I think travelers need to ask the questions, and then there needs to be answers to what Caitlin was saying, because it is important. It's, even to who's cleaning your room, who, what happens in a lodge, yes, where does the food come from? It's a whole system. And there's a trend towards more transparency, and I think it's necessary.
Yeah, and just to kind of build upon that, I think, two of the most important things that you can do as a traveler are, one, to research. Do what you can to, figure out about the destination, their practices, about the businesses you're supporting. But then, as Casey said, ask. Ask the businesses what their practices are, because by doing that, then you're going to help drive demand for those types of experiences, right? And that's really where the big change is going to be. Once travelers are able to affect how businesses are operating, because businesses are going to base their practices off of what they think is going to make them money, right? So as a traveler, letting them know that this is important to you and asking about it if it's not clear.
Yeah. So I guess I want to move to this part of the future of travel now, because, we've talked a little bit about the challenges that there exist with COVID, and we've talked a bit about what the value that travel has. So, with this pandemic, and we don't know, now we've seen how the humanity reacts to a pandemic, and just this idea of isolation, and what can you offer as an insight for how do you think travel is going to go back to the same way? Like, are people just going to be taking flights all over the world the same, or is there going to be thinking of transportation, is it going to shift from airplanes to maybe more buses, or maybe cars, or maybe just people not as interested anymore in going too far, and more interested in, like, what, I don't know, I'd rather not risk it and just stay local, and a greater emphasis on local in your state or in your county. What do you think is going to be the future? What do you think is going to be more popular? Because, I think what's popular is what's going to influence a lot of people's decision. What your friends are doing, what is everybody doing? And do you see a shift in that, or do you see it heading in a certain direction?
I can touch on that if you'd like.
Yeah.
There's a report that just came out that was, I think it was WTTC that put out a report around the future and what the trends are. And there is a portion of travelers that are reporting that they're going to stay traveling more locally. But there is a good, I think it's 60-70% are still looking to eventually return to international travel. Now, obviously that's going to take some time. So it's, it's more like end of next year to 2022, 2023. Airlines, it's going to take a long time for a recovery to happen. And so it's a rebuilding of infrastructure. But from a traveler demand, there's definitely some travelers that are thinking that they're going to want to stay more local. And I think it's good, and it's going to be interesting, because tour operators and accommodations have had to change and had to create more opportunities for domestic travelers, as you know. And there's been hotels and accommodations that have had to create more activities and options for people as they stay more locally. And I think that that's going to be really interesting to see how that builds over time.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, there's going to be a lot of those travelers that fall back into the way travel's always been. That's easy path. That's the path of least resistance. I think that's where the industry, the tourism industry, and travel advisors and tour operators need to do a better job of guiding and supporting and empowering travelers into seeking deeper, more meaningful experiences, and equipping them with the tools, and coaching them and mentoring them on mindset that drives them toward making more mindful decisions about how they travel, and how they live. So I think that this opportunity that we have, and with COVID, is that chance for us to sort of be the beacon of light, be a beacon of hope, and guide travelers. But it's going to take a shift in the value proposition. It's going to have to become more about values and withholding that all the way through the entire process and the supply chain that it's engaging.
Yeah. And besides COVID, we touched on it a little bit ago, and we talked, and somebody mentioned the idea of inclusivity and the people who travel. And it's interesting to think about how a lot of people travel and how a lot of people are afraid to travel. There's some uncertainty, for example, for women traveling alone around the world, or people of color traveling in certain areas. What is, what do you see in terms of how inclusive travel is going to be in the future? Do you see a movement of people feeling more comfortable traveling, or is there still some barriers to overcome there? And what needs to happen for travel to be more inclusive?
Well, we just released a report about Black and specifically looking at Black and people of color traveling with adventure travel, because there really hadn't been a study out before. And it was fascinating because the market is there. And it's also clear, though, that there isn't, there hasn't been as welcoming of an environment through images, even in marketing, the way that the content sort of speaks to the BIPOC traveler. And the population, at least in the United States, it's growing. And so it's definitely a market that needs to be looked at and needs to be addressed and incorporated and included from working at tour operators and accommodations and outside of like larger hotel chains. And that's something that has been more accessible through opportunities post-college and in like tourism interns. But we at the ATTA are really hoping to build more of a diverse community to address the travelers that are out there that are looking to travel and want the same experiences and are already traveling and just don't see themselves represented right now in the offerings.
Is this like a trend? I mean, are places, in terms of the industry, are what kind of experiences can we expect to see in the future? And do you think they're going to be marketed more inclusively, like for everyone, or also in terms of offering, you're Casey, you're from adventure travel, and like we talked about, there's different types of travel. So like what kind of travel experiences are there going to be more and so in the future? Is it people looking for adventure experiences, outdoor, which implies outdoor somewhat, or is it going to be more I don't know, like luxurious or kind of high class cultural experiences? Or what do you see a trend moving towards a certain I don't know what you would classify going to see the Eiffel Tower, for example, but like that compared to basically going out to a remote village somewhere and running or something.
Yeah, well, there's a trend towards more outdoor travel and also wellness travel and mindful travel, which is that's why this is an interesting group of people on this panel. I mean, I think I'll let Caitlin and Jake speak to both of the types of travel that they're deeply focused in. We're all interconnected in many ways. Adventure travel brings you mindful experiences. You need to have sustainable travel be part of adventure travel. So Jake and Caitlin.
Yeah, I would definitely reiterate what Casey said and build upon that in terms of sustainable travel. Sustainable travel is a very broad overarching term that encompasses so many different forms of travel underneath it. So of course we see sustainable travel being something that's definitely going to be of more interest coming forward as people have really thought about their impacts on the environment, on communities during this time, but also these other kind of undercurrents that are influencing that movement. Like Casey mentioned, yes, those outdoor experiences. People want to be outdoors in nature. They're already, you know, getting outdoors in nature because it's one of the only places they can be and feel safer. That's legally allowed. And so, you know, that connection to the environment is really developing in people, and also that connection that people are wanting with more immersive travel experiences to be able to experience these different cultures and communities that they're visiting, and giving back to them as well. So that's like another piece of it. And then another form of travel that I think we're going to see really coming forward is the whole idea of slowing things down and slow travel. So instead of, you know, what we've done in the past, these, you know, hectic, chaotic vacations and going to one destination after another and hitting up all these, you know, bucket list destinations in one trip, I think people, you know, they're really craving a trip where they're going to be able to stay, you know, maybe in one destination for a longer time and really get to experience that one destination versus, you know, the hustle and bustle that comes along with some of these trips.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, Jake, I, you know, jumping off of Caitlin's response, I just wanted to ask, you know, a lot of what she mentioned is what I think are the elements of a transformative experience. And you deal a lot with that as part of the Transformational Travel Council. So, you know, Caitlin mentioned immersive experiences, longer times out in nature. You know, what do you classify, or what does your organization classify as a transformational travel experience? Like, what key elements need to be there for people to really take something away and really be impacted, which I think a lot of people are going to be looking for this, you know, to be impacted in a way that they can start to really see, maybe not, you know, see the error of their ways or see a new perspective to make a change in their lives. Because I think to a certain extent, a lot of people want to make some kind of change or want to learn something else, you know, and they want to take something back. So what do you see are the elements there that people should look for?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is that a lot of travel companies and travel organizations are saying that their experience is transformational. I think that that's absolutely untrue. You know, that's not up to anybody to say what's transformational for one person or the other. You know, something may hold the potential to be transformational. And that's based on, you know, different conditions, you know, and settings. There are patterns to transformation. And so those travel organizations that understand that, you know, they're going to be able to do a better job of creating the opportunity, the vessel for that to unfold. So, you know, from our perspective, you know, it is an active pursuit. You know, so it is a combination of mindset and setting. And so in that scenario, there could be opportunity or experiences that drive you to make a change, a meaningful change once you get home. And that typically starts by looking at travel as a process. So, you know, when you first get that call to adventure that we all can relate to, you know, you start to look at your why and, you know, and your how, and then get into what are my motivations? What am I going through at the moment? You know, what are my intentions? And then working through a process that you know, really continues well after you've returned home. You know, that's where the transformation, the opportunity to transform exists. And so, you know, that's, you know, from our perspective, you know, it starts with the traveler, and, you know, it's in the travel industry, we can guide, support, and empower that, and try to provide experiences that can be catalytic to change.
Yeah. You know, thinking about Sustainable Travel International's mission, do you think that part of something that's gonna start to, or something that's gonna, I feel like a lot of, and you hear this a lot, that America's very isolated. There's an epidemic of loneliness. People are just, you know, very isolated, and even more so after COVID. And Sustainable Travel International and adventure travel, these are all about giving back, you know, in a way. And we mentioned that it's like, how do you give back to communities? And And I'm wondering if this is some element of travel in the future that we're going to really want to have there, because, I don't just want to go and take a picture and then come back anymore. I want to go and help, and I want to feel myself helping someone else and kind of being accepted into their culture and feeling that welcome. That like human touch, the humanity in another culture, and just kind of feeling part of another family, of a different community. Is that part of I personally see that part of sustainability as integral to transformation, to something, maybe not transformation, but leaving a big impact, so, I'm not just going to go and take from a place and bring back what I can and show everybody what I got. I'm going to go and make a difference for me, and whether I can capture that act on camera or not, it's not important anymore, because I'm trying to do this for my sanity, or for my kind of sense of purpose, as do you think that that's true, that people are going to maybe want to think that way a little more?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think that, it goes back to the idea that people, it's something that they want. They want to be making a difference for these communities. They want to be helping the environment. This makes them feel good. So it's not just something, that they're doing completely,
So
for
it's selfish.
for someone. It's selfish is what I'm saying, essentially. So yes, I think that this is becoming something that's more, because it's becoming, more important to people just on its own. I do think for sure that that's going to be a trend going forward.
That just makes it sound bad now. It's like, I want to go help people just so I can feel better about myself. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, Casey, what do you, from the adventure travel perspective, do you see this? Do you think, what do you think about that idea that, because if you're thinking about adventure travel, it's like, well, I want to go have, that's also selfish, I want to go have an adventure for myself. But how does the idea of sustainability and helping the communities where you go and have that adventure, how does that work into it?
Well, I don't think you should assume that anybody wants your help. So I think that we have to be careful there. Just so I think that that's and this is just maybe speaking even more from my own personal philosophy. So a lot of local communities, and the issue with over tourism is that the locals didn't want tourists to come, and they didn't want that many people in their place. It was their home. And so there's also communities who don't need us to come help them, like and so yes, they may appreciate you being a traveler and appreciating their place, but they may not necessarily need or want your help unless it's something that they've asked for, they've developed community and resources for. So I think there are ways that once you go to a place, you may be able to advocate more for, understand culturally more, create change for, and that I think, and just with your buying dollars, just to what we've been asking the question of how and where do you stay and what do you do, just by asking those questions, you are helping, because you are spending your important dollars with the right business that is maybe treating people the most fair, or putting something back into the home of a woman who has a restaurant in a local town, or employs local teens as guides, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think we're seeing this idea of helping communities that's really changed over time. Initially it was like, oh, what supplies can I bring into a destination to help people, right? Well, that's not necessarily helpful. And so really thinking about it more as respecting those local communities. That's, respecting what they want, investing in them, and respecting their home, their environment, the places that they care about.
Yeah, I'd say, hey, we should go into it with the mindset of like, let's leave these people in this place better than how we found it, right? And there are many ways that we can do that through, potentially volunteering if there's that opportunity, to just being kind, and being respectful and having reverence, for the experience. I don't think that there's necessarily an issue with feeling good or desiring to feel good by helping others. I think that's a really powerful tool, as long as it's done and in a way that is impactful in a meaningful way, and desired and accepted, and done in partnership with the destination and the community.
Yeah. I just want to say, if for those of you listening, if you have any questions, I can unmute you, or I think you can unmute yourself, and you can ask your question, or if you feel more comfortable writing it in the chat, yeah, you can put it there. Some people just left some insights here. I'll just read a quote somebody wrote. Let's see. Somebody put a quote from Seth Godin: "Instead of wondering when your next vacation is, maybe you should set up a life you don't need to escape from." Huh. That's one shift of enriching your experience of life. Now, I mean, that's interesting, because that's that also gets back to the idea of the future of travel. It's like, obviously we've talked about that there is a future for travel, but if there is a change in consciousness where people start to, I think there's a Buddhist saying that you can just kind of look at where you live differently, and you don't need to travel anywhere in the world, just by changing your perspective where you are. Is that also like, I mean, obviously this goes against like an industry based on travel, but do you see based in the future, maybe people, I don't know, just kind of deciding, maybe I don't need to see the world. Maybe I can just change my perspective here, which we talked about a little bit, like local experiences.
I'm reading a great book right now. I know somebody who's on can say who the author is, but it's called The Guilt Trip. And it was one of the stories in it is about a group of white high school students who go to another school to talk about their upcoming trip that they're going to go to Africa. And it's to a school that is predominantly with Black high school students. And it talks about the experience that these kids had that they didn't even know was 10 minutes away, and how the discomfort and what they were sort of navigating in their minds. And they were only 10 minutes away from their house. And I think that that's a very interesting example of what you're talking about, where there's lots to experience close to home.
Yeah.
Casey, are you talking about Dr. Anu Taranoth?
Yes.
Bianca?
Yeah, Bianca.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I encourage everyone to pick up that book.
Yeah, you can leave it in the chat so people could see it too. Somebody who also wrote, "Travel and tourism is different. Tourism means you have to sleep over." Jimena wrote that. Tourism means you have to sleep over. Yeah, I mean, if anybody else has any other questions, just to, I guess, recap, we're closing in on the hour, and I just kind of wanted to, get any closing ideas. We tried to capture a lot in an hour, and it's just a big topic, and we just wanted to try and get a sense of what can we expect in the future, and we're, your organizations are basically based on outdoor travel experiences that are transformational, and that probably gives a good idea of where a lot of this is going. People are going to want to have these more visceral experiences outdoors. And, we talked about looking for places that are off the beaten path, trying to find something that's different, something that it can expand your horizons beyond the iconic normal places that we typically visit. And, I wonder if each of you can just share, in closing thoughts, just what you're looking forward to, what you're excited about, or what you think still has work to be done, in terms of travel, and what you can leave consumers or travelers that are anxiously waiting to travel on their next trip, what they can start thinking about or looking forward to.
I can start if you'd like.
Yeah.
Well, what's top of mind for me and the ATTA, I believe, is really climate and diversity. I think that there is going to be more and more large populous areas, and there's going to be more people who are going to need to know that nature is good and good for their soul, and they're going to need to have those experiences. And so we need to take care of our climate and our planet in order to have these spaces that are healthy and there for us. And I also believe we need to have diversity while we're traveling and in those experiences to really have a great experience while doing that. So I'm scared and also excited about the work to be done around that, because I think it is all daunting and it all takes a lot of time and dedication. And the adventure travel industry is a complex place. There's a lot of different governments and regulations and politics and all that plays into solutions. And so I'm a little bit, I think there's a lot of work to be done, but it's also exciting because I think there's a lot of passionate people who are ready to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just, go ahead, Caitlin.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was going to say, I think that this, in one sense, it's a very difficult and, really hard time for a lot of people, but in another sense, it's also, it's an exciting opportunity to rethink what we've been doing as travelers, as businesses, as destinations, as people. To rethink how we're going about the way that we travel, and to use this kind of downtime to learn about some of those different, practices that are sustainable. At Sustainable Travel International, we also find, the climate emergency right now to be, if you're going to choose one issue out of all, that's really the most pressing environmental and human issue out there as well, because it really threatens so many populations, especially vulnerable populations the most. And so really focusing on that and learning about, what you can do, but thinking about when you're supporting tourism businesses, what they're doing as well, and understanding those practices, and again, asking those questions. And then also that idea of really going into travels with focusing on putting the needs of the communities that you're visiting, putting their needs first, and making sure that they're at the center of the tourism experience. And that because that's really what tourism depends on, right? We wouldn't have tourism without these people, without these places, and so making sure that we're doing our part to not only not destroy, but also to build up these people and places that we're visiting.
Yeah, and just to bring up a question that came out in the chat. Somebody wrote a long response about a modern version of slavery happening in trekking tourism industry. I think that really goes along with what we talked about, how we as consumers have to really research and think about the things we're going to go do, and try to figure out if everything's being done ethically. We talked a little bit about we're not voiceless anymore as consumers. We're paying, we're deciding with our money where we go and how we're going to do it, and we have to bear a little bit of the responsibility to see what's going on in these places and try and understand. And like somebody mentioned, there needs to be more transparency in these types of things. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that's happening all over the world, and the tourism industry is really needs to work on that. But we have the power to make it stop with our decisions. So I hope, if anything, like people can just take back that, yeah, we have the power of decision, and we can start to make a change by deciding not to go to these places. I just want to say that, Jake, if you want, you can just share your closing thoughts.
Yeah, I appreciate what you just shared and what Caitlin and Casey said. There needs to be a decolonization of travel. And travelers in the industry have been living, within a space that is about extraction, exploitation, and entitlement. Don't mind Henry, he's howling. We need to shift into something that's more ethical and equitable, empathetic and ecological. We have a social and environmental crisis. Travel, in my opinion, is the best bridge to building empathy and to building stewardship. If we can somehow, as an industry, help travelers get more deeper connection, more meaning out of experience, then we're going to be able to cultivate traits like empathy, compassion, and understanding. That I think will work towards solving some of these systemic issues that we face today.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with that, I just want to say thank you to everybody that stuck around and listened. And I hope you got something out of this conversation. Caitlin, Casey, and Jake, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I really enjoyed listening to your insights. And as a travel company, Aire Libre, we really like to learn. I think we got a lot of what you said. So, we can work on, our own kind of the way we make experiences and everything, and also the way we choose to travel ourselves. So thank you very much. I hope you all have a relaxing rest of your evening, and hope to talk to you all soon. Thank you, everybody who joined.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Tammy.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Casey, Caitlin.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. This is recorded, so we're gonna be posting this on the YouTube, on the Aire Libre YouTube channel. So you can watch it again. And yeah, thank you again for logging on, and safe travels.
Thanks,
Or
Jorge.
happy travels. Happy travels. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.